I'd like to introduce our second speaker for this module, Dr. Mostafa Jafarian from Warringtonfire. Mostafa is a senior certification engineer at Warringtonfire, specializing in structural fire protection and facade behavior under fire. He's a member of the BSI committee regarding structural fire design, while also working closely with other BSI committees related to facades under fire conditions. Mostafa.
Thank you very much, Ed. Thanks for the introduction. I have to say it was very interesting presentation by Barry. I hope I could follow the same pace. And also let me take this chance to thank all our audience who joined us today to be with us. And thanks, Philip, for providing us the chance to be here for this webinar. Thank you very much. As it's been mentioned at the beginning, Ed mentioned it, I'm going to talk about a bit about the changes in the fire safety regulation in the UK and how it's been mainly focusing on the bits about the facades, and talking about the changes which have happened for PSA 414 when we reviewed it, how we developed PSI 414 and what that means and how it's going to help, and finally conclude the presentation by saying what else we can do to make sure about the fire safety of the facade. So let's start with the fire safety regulations. Fire safety regulation in the UK is been detailed in approved document B. But before we go and see what are the information that we need about the external system, I think the first and most important thing is to see what has been defined in the external wall. Basically, in that standard, the external wall has been defined as anything located in any space of the forming a part of the wall, and anything which is going to be attached to it, whether it's decorative or anything else, is going to be part of external wall system. That includes any windows, any doors, and even if you have a roof which the angle of it is more than 70 degrees compared to horizontal direction, that would be seen as a part of the external wall system. As you know, following the tragic incident that we had in London, fire safety regulation and some other bits of the standards have been subject to a review. That includes the materials that you can use as a part of external system for your construction. The threshold for that at the moment is about 18 meter, and if it goes above that, then these regulation would be imposed. So if you're having a dealing with a construction which is a dwelling or a room with the residential purposes, then the materials that you can use as a part of that construction should be limited to material of limited combustibility or non-combustible. However, as you can imagine, because we are talking about the construction, not all of those materials could be made out of non-combustibles at the moment, at least. And also, this regulation has some exemptions, for instance, for hotels or any board houses that doesn't include these limitations. With regard to acknowledge the fact about the materials that at the moment, at least, we don't have them as a part of a not limited combustibility or non-combustible. The code listed a series of exemptions here, like cavity trays, membranes, thermal breaks, electrical installation, doors, door frames, and doors themselves. But the idea is that around those limitations in terms of the materials that you can use, I have to mention that while those limitations would mitigate the risk of the spread of the flame, however, those are not going to by any means going to be a free check for everyone to design as they like, because we do know that if we are going to have non-robust design, even for a system made of material of limited combustibility or non-combustible, still there is a good chance it will fail as well. So that should always be in mind. That, those limitations, that linear rule is not going to be a blank check for everyone to design the system as it is liked. And if you are going to move towards the systems for construction which are non-combustible, which you could actually use combustible products like hotels or boarding houses, then the standards would ask you to do a series of tests on your system to make sure about the safety of it, and then assess it and basically classify it to the requirements of the 0.35 at the moment. To tell you about BSA-414, it's basically a large-scale facade test. It's in the L-shaped format with a side wall, wing wall required, and the main wall. Part one of this test is basically a test which you would connect your facade system to a masonry system. And it is basically duplicating a kind of a scenario where your facade is connected to shear wall or is part of a refurbishment of a wall construction, which basically the outer surface could be a concrete or a masonry system. Part two is more like a modern kind of construction that we have. Well, basically the system would be connected to a framing system, and it would include a system from internal lining to external facade, and you would test according to that. In terms of the test itself, just to be brief about it, the overall duration of the test is about 60 minutes, which for the first 30 minutes, the fire we would let it burn, and we would see the spread of the flame on the system. But after 30 minutes, the fire is going to be killed, and we would wait and we would observe for another 30 minutes to make sure that we are not going to have a spread of the flame of a smoldering fire. The test itself is quite onerous kind of testing. It's duplicating a post-flashover kind of a scenario, and that's why it's asking to have a heat flux between 45 to 90 kilowatts per meter square, and with a steady state kind of a situation for about 20 minutes to be the heat flux to be controlled about 75 kilowatts per meter square. It creates such a massive kind of a fire. You need a heat output of about 45 megawatt of energy. And we are going to achieve that by using a timber of 400 kilogram wood, which is going to be located in a height of 2 by 2 by 1 meter deep kind of opening, which is basically duplicating a window opening. As I said, quite recently we reviewed the BSA-414, and the new revision, the fix has changed. The BSA-414 became quite specific about the type of blocks we can use as a part of BSA-414 Part 1. In terms of the height, just to create a level playground for everyone. Previously, it was a minimum of 6 meters above the earth, but right now it's been mentioned as a fixed height of 7.7 meter, plus or minus 0.1 meter above the chamber. A new round with level 3 thermocouple, which is about 7.5 meters above the chamber, has been defined. So
hello, Mostafa. Sorry, just to interrupt you. There's a sound problem. The audience is submitting questions. It's coming with a squeaky noise. Maybe do you have any other speakers running at the same time that affect the sound?
No.
Not to see, or if you go a little closer, maybe to the microphone.
Yeah. Is it better now?
Yeah, actually, it does make a bigger difference.
And if you could pause or mute your own laptop, potentially that could help.
Okay.
But it's already a lot better, I think. Yeah, unfortunately, you'll be bent a little bit. But
Okay.
if you continue speaking like that, it should improve.
Sure. Thank you very much for letting me know. So let's carry on as it is. As I said, we've defined a new level 3 of the thermocouples for the at the top, and no more attention has been made towards the fact that how reporting the amount of damage, extent of damage, flame and non-flame debris of the test, and if there is going to be any debris, then the quantity of those debris is going to be reported. But the main thing, which is quite important, is that as we know, when you're testing, the main part is about the installation, how the system has been fixed, and how it's been installed, because what we know that if for some of the products are quite sensitive of the installation process, therefore you need an expert to do those installations. As such, as a part of this BSA-414 from now on, there should be information about the date, method of assembly, and how it's been installed, and also it should be some reference to the people who have installed the system, just to make sure that what level of expertise you would need to install such a system. In addition to that, then when you've conducted your test, as I said, you may need to you need to review the test data and see what are the information which has been recorded from the test. Currently, if you do all the measurements and if any of the temperatures at any levels gets at level 2 goes beyond 600 degrees within first 15 minutes of the test and stays there for more than 30 seconds above that 600 degrees above the ambient temperature that you've started the test, then that would be seen as the test has failed. Or alternatively, if you would see it uncontrol the spread of the flame to the top of the rig, or if it becomes a matter of life safety for the people who are conducting the test and they've terminated the test before the full duration of the test, then that would be seen as a failure as well. Also, if you're dealing with a part 2 test where you would have internal lining, then the other criteria that you have to comply is that within first 15 minutes of the test, you shouldn't see any integrity failure half a meter above the chamber. If you do all of that, then you would, and if you're getting a classification, and your test become deemed to as a pass test, then you can go and see that if you could get an extent of applications. I have to talk about this BS 9414. This is the standard which been prepared after we've been tasked to develop a standard that could basically give some extent of application over the test that we are doing as a part of BS 8414. Our remit at the time was to make sure that we would have harmonized rules for cladding system which already been tested, and also we had to make sure that whatever change which is going to happen to those facade tests is not going to lead to high temperature recording of whatever is being tested. Just to give you an overview of how BS 9414 does work is this fellow chart. In this fellow chart, as you can see, the basic question is, have you done a BS 8414 test? And if the answer for that one, if you haven't done a successful BS 8414 test, is that you're not going to get any extent of application for a system. And if you have done only one test, then the extent of application would be very, very limited, because the extent of application from BS 9414, it is happening only if you have multiple tests, and that would allow you to do a linear interpolation between the data that you've gathered from those tests. For example, here, this is a table from BS 9414, and if I want to just specifically check the performance of the cavity, the change in the cavity size, as you can see, the only allowable changes would be that if you would test between minimum and maximum, and when you've done those tests, you can linearly interpolate between those informations. But the next question is, if you're just following all the recommendation from standards, doing BS 8414 test, get a BS 9414, did we do enough due diligence to make sure about the safety of our system? As I said, the fire safety regulations in the UK has been subject to certain reviews, and Judy Dame Hackett report, she said there are a couple of things that need to be considered as a part of a best practice to improve the fire safety in the buildings. That includes that your construction should be designed by competent people, and in every steps of the constructions, and everyone should have the liability towards the work that they're doing. Also, there are some requirements towards the people who are going to use those construction. And if they believe that there are some sort of limitations or risks associated with that construction, they have to raise it. Also, one of the main important things which I want to touch about it is about the transparency. One of the points that it was brought up at the time was that it is required to make sure that whatever we've done and whatever we've tested in terms of the quality of the product is going to be similar to those which are going to be used on site. As such, you need to have more transparency on the specification and the detail of the product and the fire test reports. And you need to make sure the method that was used to test those systems are quite clear. And also, it is required to know that what is the range of application of the products that you are going to use as a part of the construction. This approach which UK is trying to advocate. It is not something new, and it has been followed all around the world. For instance, if I just want to be specific about the Middle East, currently UAE, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Kingdom of Bahrain, Sultanate of Oman, State of Qatar, State of Kuwait, and India, they're also promoting those ideas. So those informations and those level of transparency, which all those countries are using, and the UK is basically, as I said, they're advocating for it, can be achieved by going through certification. And they try to make sure that the products which are used as a part of the construction, they have been certified. The reason they are asking for this kind of a certification, it is because when you are certifying a product, you are following a certain procedure, and if you are following those procedures, you can add a layer of assurance that the product that you're using is similar to what's been tested. Because when you are going through a certification, you would have to carry out a series of initial quality management system controls. The third certified body would do some factory production control, and they would do some audit testing, and they would do the testing on a sampled product, and they would ask those tests to be done on with the accredited labs for conducting those tests. And this is to make sure that this is not, whatever is going to be tested, it is not a golden product that is going to be, has been designed to do a test and pass a test for certain conditions. And also, if all those information sits in the same place, and basically if the certification has been granted, then it is not going to stop there. Every year, the company who gave the certification for the certain product or system, they would do the factory production control, and they would do quality management control as well. And at the end, and based on the certification that they are going to assign within accepted years, they have to, the manufacturers or whoever is going to hold on to that certification should redo the audit test to make sure that the product performance hasn't changed within the time. And with this, I would like to just finish and hand over to Ed again. And if there is any further questions, we would take it within Q&A session. Thank you very much.